Welcome our beautiful people who are here amongst us today in the audience and those following online. Today's discussion will be hosted by Patience from Liberia and I, Mary, from Eritrea, presenting the African Student Union in Bergen. So on behalf of our union, we would love to say Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. It's a special day, and we're so excited to address an issue that's quite stigmatized, highly overlooked, and also neglected. And that is, of course, mental health amongst Black people. As for today's conversation, we will mainly be focusing on Black women and how this affects us, and also while just creating awareness and finding some solutions and tools.
Yes. And to discuss this matter, we have some beautiful ladies here amongst us. Here we have Dora from South Sudan, Rahima from Somalia, and Anina from the Gambia and Norway. We have Yulia from Norway and Barbados. We have Gadir from Palestine and Rachel from Congo and Anita from Liberia. Yes, welcome, ladies.
Right, let's just jump right into it. Mental health, right? It's a conversation that's, it differs from person to person, how we define that term. So we'll be starting with you, Dora, and just, how do you define that term personally when it comes to, how do you define the term mental health?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this important panel and important discussion on mental health. I'll first start with what health is. I think health is a complete state of well-being, physically, socially, and mentally. And mental health then comes in the sense that it is also our well-being in regards to our way of thinking. If we, usually when we're sick, when we have pain in our body, we rush to the doctor. But when our mental health, that is, our state of mind, if it's not sound, then we, in a way, experience kind of mental health issues. And it's the way also of how we think about ourselves, how we think about the circumstances around us, and if we have people around us to kind of encourage us and to support us in our life circumstances. So I would say as health is the complete state of our well-being, both socially, physically, and mentally. Mental health is that state where we feel, all right with ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the way others perceive us, and who we have around us. So that's how I would define mental health for me.
Yeah, that was good. Anina, do you have anything to add on that? Or how do you define mental health personally?
I think that Dora gave a really good definition, much better than one that I could have done. I can only agree with what she's saying, that it's your health, but I think that a lot of people kind of separate mental and the physical, but really it's one and the same. It kind of affects each other, and the only difference is that if you break a leg, you can talk about it, but if you're suffering mentally, you can't talk about it. It's much more stigmatized. So that's why I'm really happy to be here today to talk about it, because we need to talk about it. Everyone has a mental health, and I think that that's something people don't really think about. Yeah,
I agree.
So beautiful. Thank you, guys. So now that we're on the same page about what mental health is and that we've defined the term, let's talk about, it's an open panel now, let's talk about what's affecting our mental health as Black women and what's causing us mental illness.
So who wants to start on that?
Jump in.
Break the bubble. Anita, you look quite...
Rahima, do you want to start?
Rahima?
Yes.
I would say everything affects us. But as Black women, I think it's both, I don't know, beauty standards, racism, colorism, sexism. It's like the intersectionality between everything, and we're like kind of in the middle of it all. So I would say, yeah, everything, all the isms affects us, I think.
I think some of you were agreeing here, saying, Yeah, do you guys want to say something on that?
Is it on? Yeah. Well, I am speaking from a personal point of view, and I think many Black women also share these views with me. And there are various reasons of why there are mental health issues amongst the Black women. And like she says, it's all the isms that isn't talked about, but it's also, there's also cultural issues, there's upbringing, there's religious and spiritual beliefs that can connect to that, and also racism, like she said. So there's a lot to unfold when it comes to the cause of mental health issues amongst Black women.
I would also add that, like, the stereotype of the strong Black women adds to the suffering, because then we have to suffer silently because we're supposed to be strong, and we're supposed to like keep it together and not show our pain, and so it's usually then that we suffer silently.
Because that's a concept, right?
Yeah.
The strong Black woman concept.
Yeah.
So why is it actually problematic? Because, you know, being a strong female individual, that's a good quality to have.
Yeah.
You know, if you're strong, independent, and bold, you know, you can conquer certain situations, and, you know, you can possess strength through hardships. So why is it, you know, problematic to be a strong Black woman, if you get what I'm saying? And anyone, of course, can add on that.
For me, it's about when people perceive you as only strong, they won't be soft with you. They're like, you can handle it all, so I'll give you all. Yeah, basically. And the Black strong women is something that's from basically like all the way back to slavery. Like white woman is like fragile and has to be protected, while a Black woman, like, she can go through all the shit because she's strong. She can handle it. She doesn't need to be protected. She doesn't need to be. She doesn't need to be like. We don't need to care for her because she's strong. She's supposed to care for others. She's supposed to give all her energy to others and not receive anything for her. So for me, that's why it's problematic.
One of the reasons why it's so problematic, it's not just socially. It's the strong Black woman trope is not something that we see just socially. We see it also medically. For instance, Black women are much more likely to die during labor or post-labor due to the fact that in medicine they actually still believe that Black women can tolerate more pain. They don't believe them when they say they're in pain. They don't believe them when they tell them of the symptoms. So it literally is not just problematic, it's deadly in its perception of us not being human. It doesn't allow us our humanity. While, just like Naima said, with white women, it's much more about their fragility. We have to protect them, which is also sexist, it's also misogynistic, but it kind of benefits them in another way. While Black women are not supposed to be protected, it's just like Malcolm X said, it's, you know, the Black woman is the most unprotected person in America, but it's not just in America, it's just in general. So it's such a layered problem because it goes in so many ways, even to the point where people are dying because of that perception. And I don't think that people know about the history of how Black women were used during medical trials and
The Tsatsiki
Yeah.
experiments,
Yeah.
and also the Sarah
yeah.
Bartman.
They experimented on Black female bodies, and without any anesthetics or anything. So this is not just about us not being protected, and just like you said, it's not just about that. It's about actually not being believed, not being protected, not being heard, getting, like you said, all the shit, and expecting to thrive, not just survive, but thrive, right?
And the whole field of gynecology is like basically based on like experiments on Black women.
Yeah.
And they were like birth control, C-sections, like anything and everything gynecology was experimented on Black women without anesthesia. So like when we think of the birth control we're using today and like the wonders of medicine and all that, we have like Black women to thank for that. And they didn't want that just because, they were forced because,
Yeah, Dora.
Just wanted to say about also in some of our cultures. I come from South Sudan, and I had an aunt who had mental health issues. And I remember how she didn't get any help, there's no medical help. But then every time she was psychotic, instead of taking her to the hospital, she was jailed because she was aggressive, because she was then, she could hurt people and hurt herself as well. And then the thing is, as a young girl, I never asked about why she was behaving the way she was, and no one even explained to me because it was kind of a stigma, And that's one of the problems actually why mental health issues are not being taken up, because there's this stigma, there's this taboo, as you said initially, about mental health, and the stereotype of an African woman or Black woman being strong. It even, kind of makes that stigma even stronger, because then you're not vulnerable enough. You don't show your feelings. You don't show that you're weak. You don't show that you're psychologically weak. You need help. You need to talk about it. You mentioned about religious or spirituality and stuff, and that's also one aspect of it where mental health is being seen either as you have been possessed by either demons, or you have been possessed by something, and you need to go through some rituals to be able to get rid of it. So even if you kind of feel that you're not feeling well mentally, you don't dare say it because you're afraid that you have to go through these rituals, and then you might be excluded from the society. So these are many layers that we really need to. First, I don't know in my language if we have a word for mental health. That's also a problem, because if you don't have a word for it, you won't be able to address it.
Exactly.
So these are also some of the things that we need to talk about it, because then if you have a word for it, then it's easy for you to talk about it, and then you'll be able to actually explain how you're feeling about it. So I think with mental health also, we that's also a point where we should start from. And then looking at also the bigger picture of what are the circumstances around us that also affect us in regards to mental health.
It's so interesting, Dora, that you just mentioned about having a word for mental health. Like from where I'm from, and I know in many other African countries, there is, if you're talking about mental health, we're talking about a person being insane and not having actually just a mental issue, or being depressed, or having hard time mentally. You're just, if you have any problems mentally, then you're just insane. So it's just so interesting that you just mentioned it. So we actually need to start there as Black women, like actually having a word for that, and not being just, okay, she's just insane,
Crazy.
Yeah, she's just crazy. She's just insane. It was so interesting. Right. So now we just started on unpacking. You guys were just mentioning general points, and then now we're unpacking on the strong black women concept. So let's just continue. You guys want to say something?
You mentioned when I grew up, it was like my mother and all my family, like as an example. We were like, my father and my mother were like supposed to be like this example for us children. So they were like kind of protected us in a way that, oh, we don't talk about these things, you have to be strong. But lately, I've been like being the one to actually learn my parents to like, this is something I want to talk about. How did you grow up? Like bringing up those taboo themes that always been there. So it's an experience, and it's very like hurtful because you feel like you have to be the grown up or like the modern new generation to like talk about these things with your parents. So that's why I'm actually very happy to be here today, because the history that my parents had made them who they are, but at the same time, we can take from it and learn from it, and that's why I'm so happy we're here. We can talk about these things because it's very important.
And just like touching on that, because I feel like, whatever our parents or their parents, our ancestors have experienced, whether it's, civil war from our country. I'm from Liberia, and my parents and ancestors have experienced civil war, or whether we're talking about slavery, from the pre-colonial time. I feel like whatever they've experienced, it got passed on to us, and then just like looking at our parents not being able to show vulnerability, being able to, I don't think I've seen my mother, breaking down. Like, I don't think you see a black African woman, really expressing that she's broken and she's hurt and I'm going through things, but I can't express them because I need to, showcase strength. And I think just like addressing our culturally, as the cultural aspect of that, and why, we tend to be quite uptight as black women. I think that's important.
And that's why I'm very happy to be here in Norway generally, because I get the opportunity to talk to my parents about these things without like feeling weird. I feel weird a little bit, but I kind of like got the good, like I kind of like.
You kind of feel weird because it's so touchy, and actually mental health in general is a touchy and sensitive theme, right? But then when it comes to like talking to an African, this is very interesting, Dora, because you're here and you're a mother. So I'm going to ask you that after.
She's coming for you.
But I can just like imagine myself, just calling my mom on the phone and saying that, hey, shit, I'm not doing too well and I'm using the word depressed. I can just imagine her like going, what is depression? What is depression? And that you guys mentioned the religious part, like you don't need a therapist because you already have a higher therapist, which is most often a higher source, which is God or religion. I just lost my point, but picking back on like our parents being lucky to be here and express that, but also it's so sensitive that's just so. Man må liksom trå forsiktig da, always walking on eggshells, yeah. Anyone, yeah.
I'm really happy to be here because I feel like when I heard about this panel and I saw the women that were invited to talk today, I saw that a lot of you have families that were coming here from really troubled countries. And for me, as a Caribbean and Norwegian, growing up in Norway, born and raised, I have a different experience than you guys. So I really just wanted to learn because I've heard about all of the stigmas from like the parents almost pushing the religion in that direction, that this is what you should be kind of putting your trust in, and this is what's supposed to fix you, not it coming from within yourself, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's why I just really wanted to hear you guys' stories and take on that, and how you've experienced both from growing up in that household and where you are now with your relationship with mental health, and how you kind of talk about that with your families as well.
I wanted to add something to the strong Black woman perception, because I feel like it's something that usually starts with childhood, and every girl becomes a woman. And while you are a little girl, you are seeing your parents and other female role models, and when they're not expressing vulnerability. And some of that can be a form of protection for them not wanting you to experience their trauma. But at the same time, that same trauma is being projected onto you because, excuse me, my throat is not well after COVID. I'm fine. And that same trauma can be projected onto you because they are not talking about how their feelings, they are not showing room for vulnerability, and then you as a child, you take on the same mentality. Okay, my mother can do it, my aunties have been doing it, they've been doing it for generations, I can also do it, of course. And then you grow up having that mentality of, okay, this is what is expected of me. I am supposed to be able to push through because all the generations before me have pushed through. So there's no room for vulnerability at this point. And then that then again leads to you having all your thoughts and emotions locked inside because you can't express those thoughts and emotions to anybody because no one have shown you how to express them in the first place.
Yes.
And that's why it's very, very important to know your history, know where you come from, know your childhood. Like, just ask your parents, like, how did I come here? Why did I land here? What is my after-name? What does it mean? And kind of like reflect on that and be what you want to be. Exactly, like.
That's also important when we want to get the message out there and actually educate and share with others. You have to know your own backstory and talk to other Black women around you to hear their side before you can share it further on.
Yeah, I just want to attest to what you have said, and I think you are the generation that will have an honest, conversation with your children. As you said, I'm a mother of two, and growing up in South Sudan, I didn't have these conversations with my mother, both in regards to mental health, sexuality, or whatever. But I have a daughter who's soon 18 years old, so we've had different conversations. And I remember going to kind of a parental course somewhere where we were told to kind of draw a circle where you have to put in your feelings, the feelings that you felt your parents were able to meet you on, be it anger, whatever, and the feelings that your parents really didn't meet you in or didn't really tackle well, you put them out of the circle. So I remember with my daughter, she's very, she's verbal, she'll say anything. If she's happy, you'll see she's happy. If she's angry, you'll see she's angry. So it's all this spectrum of feelings that as a young kid, I didn't really express my feelings that way. Because it's all like, be quiet, and then I'll be quiet. I'll cry in the corner and come back when I'm done, But then with her, I had to kind of, it wasn't easy, because I had to kind of reflect. I have to learn. I have to kind of learn how to be a parent for her in the context of Norway. But then there comes also with these feelings. And it was okay for me to cry, sometimes, and then I'll explain why I cried. In this way, I help them to be able to also express their feelings. And sometimes maybe I wasn't able to kind of take all the feelings because I didn't learn how to do that. And that's something I had to learn. And that's the same thing with the kind of mental health in regards to to being depressed, saying that it's okay to not feel okay, you know. It's okay to cry sometimes, you know. And all these feelings that we, our parents, maybe haven't taught us, we have to learn to teach our children. And asking these questions, I believe it's tough for your parents to be asked, why do you want to know it? You could, yeah. But it's important for them in their development also of their mental health, and for them to be able to meet also others. And like, okay, stop here.
But Dora, now that you were just talking about that, Dora, we've sensed like a little bit of frustration when it comes to our parents not being there to teach us about mental health and everything. But what do you think is the main issue of them being not open about mental health?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer for every parent, but I think, you know, it's kind of coming from a war-torn country, like the case of South Sudan, and also we have experienced a lot of traumas that we haven't dealt with ourselves. And then moving to a new country like Norway, you have to learn the language, and you have to, there are a lot of also stresses that sometimes you kind of pack the trauma you have somewhere there, and you start learning the language, thinking now that you're kind of, you know, in a new setting, you feel like integrated, you experience racism, you experience unemployment, there are a lot of challenges, and you want to be a parent available for the children, their needs, but you can't do it because you have a lot of those traumas that you haven't dealt with. So it's a lot of other issues that come up. And then when we haven't dealt with the traumas that we're going on with, we pass it further to our children, because then our tolerance window is so small, we don't tolerate a lot of the stresses that the children have. And with young children, I realize that they sense us as parents if we are not having a good day. So if they have had a bad day at school, they will not come and tell us because they see that Mom is having a bad day today. I'm not going to ruin her day. And then if they can't talk to us as parents, whom do they talk to then? Then that's when also we also lose our children, because then they find other people, be it in the social media, wherever it is, that give them the room and give them the space and give them themselves. So we need also to get help for our issues. We need to talk about it first, and then we'll be able to open some space for our children to talk to us. So that's how I see it. Yeah.
Very beautiful.
That's good. We'll be addressing how we can, find help and solutions after. I saw your hand. Yeah. And also Rahim after.
I also want to point out the fact that psychology is a very, a psyche isn't a new thing. Obviously, it's been existing since the beginning. Like, all animals have psyches, and human beings are animals. But the science of psychology is a fairly new science. It's very, very young. It's still in its baby infant stage. And it's not an exact science either. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people, even here in this culture, kind of struggle to understand it and respect it, and on the same, in the same way that they respect medical, like physical illnesses. It was very interesting because I wanted to be a psychologist. I'm still going to be a psychologist in the future. And when I told my father and my uncle that, and my father is the one who's Gambian, and he was like, psychologist? What is that? I might as well work at McDonald's. No offense to anyone who's working at McDonald's. But my uncle was like, become an attorney. You talk so much. And now I'm studying law, so. But it's like, to them, it was just like the stupidest thing. Like, what is that? Psychology? Become a psychologist? What the hell is that? So to them, it doesn't even exist. It's not even like a legit thing. And I don't think that, if you really talk to my father and the father side of my family, like you said, it's not a thing. Do we even have a term for it? I don't know. I don't think so, because they don't even talk about it. You know what I mean? But then again, I think it's also very, very important to kind of point out, because I'm half, I know both sides, and I know that there's a lot of ignorance in the Norwegian culture as well. I've heard some extremely ignorant things coming from my Norwegian family. Yeah. So it's a lot about attitudes, about traditions, about generations, about all of those things, you know? And I think that's really, really important because I don't want it to be just like, okay, in the African culture, it's like this because they haven't understood this and this. No, it's like, yeah, absolutely. And when I'm thinking about the specific things that we experience as Black and brown women, I think about the things that I experienced when I was just so innocent as a child, you know, already understanding, not necessarily because it was told to me explicitly, but I was picking it up from you know, around me, you know, by osmosis. And understanding that I was less desirable because I was half Black, less desirable because of the melanin in my skin, because of my curly hair, because of my Black features. I knew that I was less desirable, or I was looked at as less desirable. And wanting to look like my white mom who had blonde hair and blue eyes. That might just be because it was my mother, but also because of society. And the things that I observed in my father's home, seeing skin lightening creams. It was my father who was using it. It wasn't the female. It wasn't It wasn't the males in my father's family who were using it. It was the females. And I remember as a child, I was looking at them because I could tell by their hands. And I was like, why do they look like this? And why are they doing it? And I remember asking my mother, like, do they want to be white? I didn't understand. And she was like, no, they just want to be lighter. She even said lighter like you, and that made me really confused.
Let's touch on that. Actually, let's talk about it because, you know, European beauty standards absolutely has an effect, right? So, like, who wants to touch on that? Like, how that affects us?
I could start by saying that absolutely what Anina says, and especially having like one foot in each camp, like you're not totally like dark skin, but you can't really identify with the Norwegian beauty standard at all. So growing up, like I grew up in a small village. I was the only person like mixed or of any other race really. And the comments that people will make, it's just, I know that it's not coming from a bad place, but it's just ignorance. So much ignorance. And then for the longest time, also not having any other Black role models to look up to, no one in my community to talk to about how I was gonna do my hair, like how do I avoid like getting it super dry or like messing with it, and all of these small things that you get from like having like a Black parent present that you don't get in like a small community. So yeah, and I think that also when it comes to mental health, being of like another, like coming from a different place, being Black, brown, whatever, it's kind of, it can create a mental problem if you live in a country like Norway. Not because Norwegians are bad or meaning you anything bad, it's just that being different and growing up with that mindset, like I'm never gonna fit in, I'm never gonna be the same as them, I'm never gonna kind of be able to fully identify with them, that's kind of also creating a mental struggle in your head that you have to deal with. Yeah.
Godir, do you want to jump in?
First of all, I could sit here and listen to your talk for days. So I'm from Palestine, and at my home, every summer, I see, and I have two sisters, and they don't talk at all about mental health, but I see them every summer. Maybe in March, they start using cream to get lighter, and yeah, I hear it and I see it every summer, and I even get yelled at and told like, why are you not using this cream? And then yes, and if I sit in the sun, oh my God.
That's
the audacity to pick me up and put me in a place in the shadow, like don't sit in the sun. Yeah, like and some I have a sister walks by me and she takes my hijab and put it on my face, and like no sun for me at all, and it's
for
annoying.
You not to get darker.
Yeah, I can get darker. I today have a fiance, but before I was in a relationship, I was always told, I will not be married if I get darker. I will not have a boyfriend if I get darker. Like it was
Wow.
really harsh. It was really hard.
It's female specific too.
Yes,
It's female
yes.
specific.
And
A man can be as dark as
Yeah,
you know.
and the funny part is I will have I will have a wedding in this summer, but they two still single, even though they're using this phrase every summer. It was my chance to call them out. It was my time to call them out, and I'm happy I did it. Oh my God!
Okay.
We'd love to hear that.
This is so interesting. Okay, so obviously futurism, colorism, all these isms have affected us, right? And so we all know where it started, but let's just, elaborate a little bit on that.
Rahima, you had something.
Yeah.
It was like I was going to say something about our parents when you had the word. Recently, I've been thinking about when my mother was my age, she had 3 children, and she had escaped from a war-torn country and was a refugee in a new country and like had to grow up so fast. I am 26 now, and I couldn't imagine having 1 child, let alone 3, and not knowing the language in that country and being like outside of the society, and also not having the words or like maybe the capacity to understand that she had been through a trauma. She'd been through war, and she'd also become a young mother alone without her, like in my country, you have a whole community when you become a mother. You have like your neighbors, you have your mother, you have your sisters. Everybody chips in to help with the newborn and with the new family. She didn't have that. And on top of that, she was, as I said, learning a new language, learning a new, like how the society works. And then having to raise us too. I don't think it could have gone any different than it did. I don't think she had like the energy or anything at all to maybe mother us in a way that an average Norwegian white mother could. She had just too much on her plate, and I don't know. For me, I didn't think about mental health till I moved out from my from my home. I didn't think about like bad days or good days. You woke up and you did your shit because that's what mom and dad did. Like nobody asked you like, how are you feeling lately, or what are feelings like? But really, what are feelings? And if they catch you cry, they're like, I'll give you something to cry about. Yeah, like you don't know pain. You don't. Yeah, it's true, because the whole thing is when they're saying you don't know pain, they're talking about their own pain. You don't know what I've been through, their struggles.
They're comparing
Yeah,
us.
they're comparing. Like for me, I was born here, and then I grew up here. There's no war, there's no conflict. I have roof over my head. I have food on my table.
Right.
Then I should be happy,
Right.
because they didn't have that, and they're thinking if I had that, I would be happy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
But are they?
no, but like they didn't have that. That's why they're not happy in their head.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I had that. I had a roof over my head. I had safety, and I had food. I should what is depression? Yeah, what is
Yeah.
depression? What is a
Yeah.
bad day? I should be grateful for what I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I think we can relate on what Rahima is saying.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I agree, because I believe that our parents actually migrated to give us food and peace,
Yeah.
and and
Like-
and I think at some point they've become happy with that, with what we have.
Yeah.
And as long as we have that provided,
Yeah.
The most
then it's-
basics.
Yeah, but it's true, because
But mental health is like a privilege thing.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
like talking about mental health at
Yeah.
all is a privilege,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if you think about it, if you think about Maslow's pyramid,
yeah.
like if you have the basics, then you can think about like the other steps in the ladder, but they didn't have that. So what the hell are we talking about mental health and having like depression?
Why would you have mental
Yeah,
problems?
yeah, why do we have
Yeah.
mental problems? We've not been through war, we've not been through anything really
I think
bad.
when your body is like constantly in like this flight mode,
Yeah,
survival mode.
yeah,
you know,
that's the
you-
thing.
yeah.
They're surviving, and I'm saying I'm trying to live, not survive. And that's the difference between our generation and their generation. They're
Yeah,
just,
true.
they haven't left survival mode.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm-
we're trying to thrive.
Yeah, and I'm
actually live.
like, Mom and Dad, I want to live, I want to be happy, I don't want to survive. And they're like, but I don't know any other life that's not surviving. And so we're coming from a whole two different perspectives, and it's hard for us to relate to them, and it's hard for them to relate to us.
Yeah, that's true. Rachel, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think somehow Norway generally can play a big role in this, on this place where our parents come here, leave everything behind, you know. I remember when my family came here, I don't know about you guys, but we didn't get any help from the system. First of all, I think our parents need to learn how the rules work here. Which rights do you have here?
Which rice?
Rights.
Oh, right.
Yeah, not they don't have jollof rice here. The rice is important. The rice is important. Where do I buy the best rice? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the rights and offering the mental help to our parents will be like a very big deal, because that will help us children too. And my parents didn't get that. I didn't get that. I came from a war. I came from trauma. All these things. I didn't get that help. They didn't even ask me, do you need this help? You know, I had to like work through that all by myself. And I guess you guys can like...
We definitely can relate. Like, in my case, there were times I was depressed and I didn't even know that I was depressed. And then later on, when you get to know what depression is, it's like, oh shit, I was depressed, right? So yeah, we all can relate. Yeah, Anita.
That was precisely what I was going to touch on, because I think our parents, first thing is stigmatized. Like we said, it demonized, is stigmatized, we don't talk about it, we don't know about it. And some people don't even recognize when they are into, when they have a mental unstable, I want to say unstable well-being, but that would be totally wrong. But when they're mentally unstable at that state, and I don't think they recognize it. So I think one of the issues is also being able to recognize the signs, the symptoms, and acknowledging, okay, when do I seek help? How should I seek help? And where should I seek help? Because if you can't acknowledge it, and if you can't recognize it, then you don't even know what it is. It is unknown to you. And therefore, you have nothing else to do than to survive.
And just adding. And sometimes I'm like thinking, man, I have to go to the therapist. But I'm like, man, I'm broke. How can I do it? This could have been done a long time ago. And I have to sit here just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
All right.
Yeah.
I actually, and I also think it's important to talk about what African women or Black women go through, like specifically, like the women. Obviously, I think one thing I think the audience should know, who don't have that kind of background, that we were talking about in the beginning before the panel started, I love this panel because it shows that we are all Black and brown women, but we're completely different, have completely different backgrounds, completely different cultures, and that is not something that is often represented or shown. That's why I love this panel so fucking much. Please note this, okay? So when I say this, this is very, very important. You know, Black people are not a monolith, African people are not a monolith. So when I'm talking about this, I want to say that it's from the culture that I lived through, specifically the Gambian culture. And so I can only speak to this, so I don't know if this is also true for you. But the things that I saw, like seeing family members who had gone through female genital mutilation, because that is also something that's common in specific tribes in the Gambia. I also knew Somali women who also had gone through that. It wasn't talked about. They didn't talk about it. That is huge trauma, but they don't talk about it. And knowing, for instance, that domestic violence could be very, very common. My father didn't do that. And for me to learn that that wasn't normal, like he was one of the like the exceptions, was to me shocking. Like what does that do to a young girl learning these things and no one is talking to you about it? You're just witnessing it. You're just observing it and witnessing it. And then I'm getting these kind of like things told to me through society and the things that I'm observing as a girl. And I'm being taught what I'm supposed to accept in my relationships. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that that's also a very important thing to talk about. And again, if you look at Gambian women, you would see strong, beautiful women. Like they are all of that. But it's also things that are going through behind the scenes, you know what I mean? That aren't talked about, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good one. But I think also most of the reason why, you know, when it comes to our parents, why they don't talk about these things, or, you know, talking about female
genital mutilation.
Thank you. That's because, you know, it's, I can, you know, try and, you know, it's like a sense of feeling maybe guilty, or maybe it's like a shameful topic.
Yeah.
And I feel like whenever something is shameful or, you know, it's like put in the dark, it's just shameful to talk about.
Yeah.
You don't feel as open as you should. And I can, you know, relate that to when it comes to mental health, like when it's, I don't know how to put it, but when it's like, when it tends to get
difficult to talk about, maybe?
Difficult to talk about,
yeah.
and just maybe shameful to talk about. You just want to keep it to yourself and just, you know, put a lock on it and just not talk about it. Of course, that's not related to the female genital issue.
But it is like the violence towards women, because women are being taught that it's normalized. It's normalized, and you don't want to be, like they say in Norwegian, like the speak on some sticker out, because it will be hit. You know, you don't want to be the one who's kind of like ringing the alarm bell, because then you're kind of separating. And also, we have to remember, in African cultures, they're very, you know, there's collectivism. You know, it's not, in Norwegian culture, very individualistic. Yeah. So I was born and raised here. I can be like, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even have to think about like my family's reputation, you know, and stuff like that. But in an African culture, it's very much like a collective. We have to think about each other. We have to think about this and that and that. So also these are aspects to it and factors that play into how we kind of tackle these things.
That is so true. That is so true. Dora, do you want to jump in now?
I just wanted to say that talking about it is one thing, but then with whom do you talk with? That's another thing. Exactly. Because I think, like, you know, in there's this kvinnafellesskap, like women, not fellowship, that becomes too religious. Collective? It's like collective, community? Who to talk to, you know, because I think we as African women, we talk a lot with each other. Like if you have a group of women together that you trust, you can, you know, express your feelings, and your friends, your closest, will know that something is wrong with you, Dora. I think you need help. If I can't get the support from my friends, then maybe someone else that is outside. And I think also with in the context of Norway, where people come and you lose your social network, you don't have a job, there are a lot of other issues, apart from the trauma that you've experienced, that also makes things difficult. So if you don't have the social network that will help the parents to learn about the rights that they have, to know about the things about the society, then these problems even become bigger. So I think we also need some spaces where these parents, we can go there and talk about our problems, support each other, and think, okay, we need to talk differently to our children, because we can't talk the way we did back home. Because here they ask questions. They don't just take a no for a no, So we have to also go into those things, because I think we can't, the needs, you talk about, you young people wanted to thrive. We also want to thrive. But then we don't only want to survive, because there are lots of parents who have also had jobs in their home countries. They were lawyers, they were doing great jobs, but then you come here, you start learning the language, you don't get to understand the language as much as your kids, that you don't, the years go by, you don't get a job, you get frustrated, and things you get into depression, and you just go deeper into a hole where it becomes difficult to talk about this issue. Then you are not able to also meet to the mental health needs of the children that you're around, So I think it's many layers that need to be unpacked, and
Yeah. Anita, you had something to add to that?
Yeah. I wanted to say, I think some of the reasons why these things are not discussed is because of fear. Not only because people see it as shameful, because remember, these practices in those cultures is the norm. It's normal for them. And many African practices, cultural reasons, spiritual reasons, have somehow been misunderstood when it comes to European standards of living, lifestyle-wise. Let's just take African spirituality, for instance, right? It is usually shown in the light as very voodoo-ish, witchcrafts, and
magic.
demonized stuff, because people don't have the knowledge of why those people do these practices. So from the African side, most people are afraid to talk about those things outside of the family because they are afraid it will be misunderstood. And it is the norm in those cultures. Therefore, some people have not yet again acknowledged that this might be harmful for that child or this daughter or whatever. So it's a mixture of the fear of it being misunderstood, because many of their previous cultures have been misunderstood, and it's also maybe shameful, like you said. So I think it's a mixture of both, and that's why many African homes don't speak about certain things, because we have the saying, like, if you don't sell yourself to the street won't buy you. So whatever happens in this house, it stays in this house. And if there's anything you are processing or going through, we have to counsel as a family member, because once you say it to the white man or to the outsiders, they are going to eat you alive, and they're going to say this and that and that. So what will people say? That mentality I think is stuck with the majority of us, like, what will people say about this? Yeah. And how are they going to interpret it to others?
And no wonder, considering the history of how
no
been treated.
wonder. So I also understand their skepticism of why they don't want to express certain things or talk about certain things, because they have the mentality of fear that it might be misinterpreted.
Yeah, we understand that it is something that we can understand what they're doing, but it's just hurting us. So there's no excuse on, understanding them.
No, it's no excuse. When it comes to hurting females, definitely no excuse. But we should also understand the fear of not expressing certain things is based on the fear of previous experiences.
Yeah.
And Black women are also often having to, because like you said, we're between like two chairs, like we say in Norwegian, like we have like the being female, then being black, and often we're kind of like drawn between the two of them, and often we've been taught as women to protect our men. That's very true.
It's
Like,
true.
we have to protect our black men because of history and how they've been treated and demonized by society. So if they do something, it's often like we have to choose our blackness before our womanhood, in a sense. If that makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel was first, and then, or maybe.
I wanted to say a little bit about what you said, and it's kind of interesting because it depends on how kind of how the country have developed, kind of, because Africa is big, like yeah, and also depends of how our parents' degrees, like the school, how much they know about the communities and the history of the world, like everything, you know. And like you said, you talked about I forgot. Yeah, you said you were talking about the parents, like learning, they need help to learn their children, so they also can grow and
So they can get help.
they can get help too. And they lost, like my parents, they lost their jobs. Like they had to start all over again here when they come to Norway. And I've kind of seen how it affected me growing up here in Norway. The standards was very hard for me to fit at school. When you see like everybody in school having the same things, playing, being on the different activities, and now their parents have enough money and economy to do all these things, while I'm like, oh, I cannot join, or because of my parents doesn't have the opportunity to like giving me what they want to give me so I can fit into the society here. So that made me also kind of like, it affected also my mental health kind of, because I felt like I couldn't fit in because everybody got to do the things I didn't get to do kind of as a child.
All right, yeah.
I get that.
So, Rahima, you can jump in, and then we can go to the next question.
For me, it was about something whole other. I was thinking about when you said like a female collective or a community, and I've been thinking about gossiping, and like how we've seen. But it's true. I think that gossiping is a really good thing. I do.
No.
Yeah, I do.
Hear me out.
Explain.
I'll explain myself. Not gossiping in the way like, oh my God, look at what she's wearing and all that. But when we think about like in a matriarchy or in like a community of women, when we gossip, we tell each other about things like in our lives, in our friend's life. Oh my God, my husband did that, my child did that, or I heard that the neighbor, like you find out.
Venting.
Yeah, it's true. Like
Evolutionary.
yeah,
I
it's
can back this
true.
up.
Yeah, it's true. I
Yeah.
know it's true, and that's why I'm a fan of gossiping. Huh? Yeah, it is gossiping. When we sit like this and just dish about our lives, and like, oh my God, I saw that Mary was doing that, and I saw like, and I had a argument with her, and all this. Like we're venting.
Yeah.
We're like in a gossipy way, but still we're venting to our friends. Kind of relieving the pressure inside of us.
But isn't it funny that men just talk but we gossip?
Yeah. So
Really?
that's why I'm taking back.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
I
taking
think
back.
it depends on the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
you know,
like
the circle.
yes, that's why I'm taking back
Yeah.
gossiping.
That
Like
leads to the
Venting. Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Agree.
women.
Yeah,
Like
venting.
because if there's a group of women and they're talking,
Yeah.
we say that they're gossiping.
Yeah.
That's like they don't talk, they're gossiping. That's
Yeah.
how we talk about a group of women talking to each
Yeah.
other about their lives. And so, okay, we're gossiping, but still we're venting. We're telling each other about our frustrations, about our home life, and maybe we'll find out that some of us are like experiencing domestic violence, and
Yeah.
we can help each other.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really good thing to
Yeah.
gossip. and I think we should do that more often.
Yeah, I
So
think we
that's
have
my
to
2 cents.
redefine it and
Yeah.
I think we
say
need to
vent
redefine
instead of
it.
gossiping, and
But
then we
it
do
is,
that.
like it is defined
Yeah.
as that. Like it's a
Yeah.
bunch of women
But
talking.
it's also stigmatized, like, men can talk, but women are like gathered together to gossip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's
that's why-
gossip.
yeah.
Let's redefine
Let's gossip.
Right.
Yeah.
Goddard, you want to jump in?
Let's chat.
So me as an Arabian, we do gossip a lot, all day, all day. We don't just live from water and eating. We live from gossiping too. We love to know everything that happens in everyone's houses. But the problem is, everyone is protective. They don't talk about what they actually feels. They could talk for hours, but no one will say any word about how they really feel. And they play the tough person all the time. Like they don't no feelings on the table at all. And that's something I'm struggling with at my home. I have a big family. We are 8 siblings, and for the last 4 to 3 years, I have been mentioning mental health, but no one is listening. It's off the table. Like, we don't talk about it. And the best part of having so many siblings, like, we know how to have fun. We could travel. We could do a lot of stuff together to forget what we actually feel. But the problem is, like, yes, couple
People are
yeah,
not
it's
honest.
up. And
Yeah.
a couple of months ago, I had one brother. He did say it. He feels the need to talk to a therapist, and I was really proud of him. And I was about to help, but yeah.
That's
As fast as you start talking about feelings, we ship to the next. What movie are we gonna watch?
Yeah.
This is gonna be the next thing.
Yeah, I think there is a thing in us that we actually feel uncomfortable, and people open up to us. We don't actually know how to handle it because we're not actually so trained on, supporting people emotionally and all that. So sometimes it gets awkward. So it's not only your family. Many of us have experienced it in our families or
But then-
friends too.
But then again, we also often see in these cultures that we use our grandmothers, or the women often get the therapist role. You know what I mean? That we're often used as, women are often used across cultures as like emotional support animals. You know what I mean? But we're not allowed to think about our own needs.
Yeah. So we've actually kind of jumped into the next question
that's a
that
good
we were going to ask.
That's a good
And that's
segue.
just so smooth. We like it. So now let's talk about how to, invest in our mental health, and as individuals and as a community. How do we invest in our mental health?
Well,
Therapy.
we've actually already mentioned quite a few, a solid tribe of people that you can talk to, like Dora mentioned. And also, therapy. But therapy is also another, like a whole category on itself.
Yeah, let's
Because,
talk about it.
let's talk about therapy.
Let's talk about,
because
you can unpack on what you mean with therapy.
Therapy. Like, yeah, I mean therapy, but also, but it's also it's not as easy as that, because as a black person, or as a black woman, if you go into like a therapist's office and they don't have any knowledge about like my cultural background or how we talk about stuff in our home, and she only has like the white Norwegian perspective, the advice and the advice she's going to give me or he's going to give me is not something that's going to resonate with me. If I'm like, I have a problem with my mom, she doesn't listen, blah blah blah, and the therapist is like, you just need to set a boundary with her, and when she yells at you, just say stop. And I'm like,
tell a black woman to stop.
Tell that to my mom.
I'm like, are you?
What did you say?
Yeah. I'm like, are you trying to get me killed? Like, I came to you for help, not to become more traumatized. And so, like, just stop. This is a boundary. Like, what the hell are you talking about? So it's not like, we say go to therapy, but what I mean is, don't go to any therapist. Go
Yeah.
to a therapist that has like the cultural competency to help you where you're at and where your background is, and when like you feel that they listen to you and they understand you, because we all just want to be understood. And if the therapist they're supposed to help us with our depression or our mental health is just sitting there but just like, oh, I've never heard about this, and then you have to like educate the one that's going to help you, that's a whole nother problem.
I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
share on that because I actually went to my first therapy session on Thursday. Woo! Don't clap.
Don't clap.
Let me elaborate first. And that's because, I needed it and I went there and she was super nice and very understanding and everything. But at some point, I just knew that me and her couldn't connect on a deeper level. And they just stopped there. And that's because it's like, how am I going to tell this lady that the reason I'm feeling this and this and this is because I'm a black young female in a society that's, this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
So it stopped there. So like, we can talk about finding inclusive, including the cultural aspects in the therapy section, but like, how do we go about doing that?
I don't know. I went to a
Yeah.
therapist once, and I was telling her about like I had experienced like racist incident, and I was like just venting to her like, oh, I experienced this, and she said that, and blah blah blah, and then she was like, oh, I know what you're talking about. I was a woman in the '60s, so I experienced sexism, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I was just sitting there like, but I'm a woman. I still experience sexism too. Like, it's just because I'm a black person doesn't mean that like my womanhood is gone. And so I know what you're talking about. It's not just as easy as just
It's
going to
not?
therapy. But I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Rachel wanted to add on that.
You can start.
Yeah, you
Well,
can
first
take
Dora,
it
then
away,
Anita.
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Anita.
For me, I think I have two things to address. The first one will be first acknowledging that mental health is an issue. We have to listen to our bodies. Like we said previously, we are so mentally prepared to be strong, but when our body is giving us signs that is the reflection that you are mentally unwell, we have to acknowledge that. So I think one of the first thing is educating ourselves about mental health, the signs and symptoms, and how they how they appear, and how they unfold physically too. And another thing is also really listening to our friends and family and trying to help them and try to understand them and help them to figure out when to get help, because I feel like most of us, we have shared trauma. We express this ourselves, but then we are not really listening to each other. We are not observing each other's behavior carefully. And and that leads to ignorance again, because then we are not catching up on, okay, she's not eating. It can be the smallest sign, like, I'm a female, and many of you are females. And one of the things I was speaking to my friends about today was one of my toxic traits was, I felt like a friendship it's a give and take situation, like any relationship. And if I throw the ball in your court, next time it's your turn. And if I check up on you and you're not checking up on me, and then I'm like, okay, fine, I'm not going to talk to her because she's not checking up on me. And then I started reflecting on the situation, like, okay, maybe you should actually take the time to understand what your friend is trying to interpret. Excuse me. What is she trying to say? This can be a simple sign of depression. Okay, she's isolating herself. She's not eating. She don't want to participate into certain activities. She's not expressing herself emotionally to you. And then instead of you, trying to understand, and then you kind of pull back. And then that's another form. We are not listening. We are just existing. We are not listening to what she is actually trying to say. So I think that's another thing we should address, how to really educate ourselves about it and how to listen to our friends and family and check up on them to help them figure out when should I get help.
Beautiful, Anita. Yulia, do you want to jump in?
Didn't somebody want to? I feel like there was somebody before me, wasn't there?
It was Dora. And then
Oh, okay. Well, I just lost my whole point in Anita's beautiful words. But I was just gonna say that just like obviously, if you really, really need help, you should seek someone professional. Absolutely. And we've also discussed that that shouldn't be just anybody, it should be somebody suited to your needs and your background and your culture. But for me, sometimes it has just been helpful meeting someone that has shared some of my experiences. I remember the first time I got invited to just like an all Black girls just hang out. We were just drinking wine and talking about everything from casual daily things to our mental health, to our hair, to whatever. And I just remember leaving feeling like I'd gotten like some sort of release because I felt like I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to actually explain the background of why I was having to do these things or why this is important to me or why, because everyone knew. It's just a mutual understanding that I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. So I feel like that's also important to think about when you're thinking about your mental health, like who you're surrounding yourself with and who you're choosing to spend your time with, because some people just tend to take your energy and drain you and put you even further down. Yeah.
It seems like we all agree. Rachel?
Yeah. It's very important to know who you're gonna like express yourself to. And I also think that as the majority of like Black like people here in Norway, we kind of like have a big job to do, like as we are doing now, just sitting talking about this right now is so important, but also trying to learn and teach each other, like Norwegians, teach us how to like behave around them, and then we also can like teach them how our culture, kind of like stay together, because it's very hard. It's very hard out here. So it kind of like we have
New song.
Yeah. We have like a big role to play. We have a big role to play to like teach them about our culture. Just be unit. That's very important.
Yeah.
a solid tribe of people. We need that. Actually, Dora, I've been waiting for
I'm
hour.
enjoying listening to you, so that's fine. I will just add that self-care is really important because that's from my own experience. It's like I love working with people. I give a lot, but sometimes I feel my cup is empty. I don't have much to give to others, so I need to fill my cup before I pour it somewhere else. So I think self-care is very important, that we invest time on ourselves, and it individually, it differs, what we do to fill our cups. For me, I have to go out in nature just to feel the, breeze and, just have some touch with nature, and then I feel refreshed, and then I can give more to my children, to the people I work with, and the people I love. And also surrounding yourself, as you mentioned already, with good people. I have some good friends, good women that we can talk things with. Every time I call, every time I hang up the phone, I feel empowered, I feel energized. And that's important, to have such people around yourself. And again, as you said initially, that, we all have mental health. It's having this openness that, as there was a time I had so much pain here, I thought my heart was kind of collapsing, so I had to rush to Legevac. If we do that with our mental health, that would be perfect. So I think we should also take that time to as you say it again, be observant of each other. Now we have gone through 2 years of COVID, and that has also even put more stress on ourselves and on our mental health. There are people we haven't seen for quite a long time. We think, everyone is busy, but we don't really know what people are going through. So an extra telephone call could really make a difference in someone else's life. So I think that's, if we all do that, I'm not good at that sometimes, but just reminding ourselves that we need to do that.
But
It
I
takes
feel
more.
like, we can have a huge solid tribe of people, right? And people we can reach out to. But if you do not check on yourself and actually dare to be vulnerable, or just dare to be open and, just dare to say, hey, sis, I'm not doing too well. I need help.
Exactly.
Being able to say those words before actually taking the next step. So
Yeah.
I think it's important.
And even
as well.
setting boundaries, because sometimes we really need to, we want to help people, want to do that, and sometimes you're not in that space, and you can say, what, today I can't do it. And that, making sure that the other person will understand it, because then if the person doesn't understand it, then you feel like, you have to do it. So it's
Yeah.
just also, it's
Yeah,
not
it's-
easy, but, it's something we just have to practice.
To do. Yeah, it's so interesting that many of you are mentioning about people you surround with. And I was just sitting here now and thinking that people that we surround us with are not only people that we meet in person, it's actually people who we follow on social media and people who will actually letting influence us, right? So I just want to mention that.
Social detoxing.
Yes, social media detoxing is also very important to actually follow people that we know are going to empower us, especially now, today, that we're spending so much time on social media. Yeah, Anina.
I was going to say, I agree with everything that's been said here, and I think just like Dora said, self-care is so important. Like you said, with setting boundaries, knowing because women, I think especially because of how we've been socialized and conditioned in general, we can be so bad at setting our boundaries because they've not been accepted, or we haven't been allowed to have boundaries. And then again, the fact that we are often, like I said, the emotional support animal of other people, constantly being other people's mothers, whether or not you are a mother, being other people's therapists, best friends, we're sister, we're everything, always, at all times. And it's so important, like you said, check in on yourself. And, it's such a cliche with the, the classic, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can do it on others. But it's so true. It doesn't, what does it help in this world if you completely deplete yourself and help everyone else and then you're lying there dying? It doesn't help. It really, really, really doesn't help. And you have to think about yourself. And you know what? I was so afraid of being selfish. That was the worst thing I could ever be, was selfish, because that was being cruel or mean. But self-care is not selfishness. It's actually loving yourself, because sometimes we actually have to learn not just to give, but also to receive.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, girl. I think, we need to wrap up soon for Q&As, but just Gadir first, and then Rahima. Yeah.
For me, it's really hard because for my friends from at work, at home, I have really to be the strong person, and I have always been this strong person. I can't even, when we sit down and talk, whoever I'm talking to, I have to be the strongest one, and the mom, basically. But in the last couple of months, me and my family, we had a fire at our home, and we have to change house. It was a lot of stuff, and I felt the need to stay strong, but I knew deep in me I was about to collapse, and I did that in January, where I spent 2 weeks where I didn't even say hi to my family. While I was living with them, it was really hard. I was at a point where I choose to be selfish, because that's the only thing I had left. I felt like I've lost myself, and I got really weak, and in a home like mine, we don't talk about mental health, and I see it in my siblings and my mom and my father, like, oh, you need a therapist. I see it, but when I had it, no one could see it. No one could.
Because you've always been a strong person.
Yeah, I was the strong person. Yeah, so I am at the point where I am really selfish, so I can go for a whole week with a don't disturb mood on my phone. Like, I'm not gonna text anyone. I'm not gonna be there for anyone. I'm just gonna pick up my pieces and find myself. At this point, so yeah, taking care of myself, like, generally, because I have ignored self-care before and putting myself first. So yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. No, we've talked about putting yourself first and like self-care and all these things, which I think are very important. But I also would like to add that, like, we maybe need to remember that we're not alone. That we have, like, we're in this together. We're like remove ourselves from like the individualistic mindset and think more collectively. Like, we are a community. We're not alone. If I don't have the capacity to have my own back, my sister will, like, or you will, and just like we're all in our little apartments, depressed and alone, like all of us, and thinking that we're the only one that are experiencing these feelings when we're not. And so by having these kind of conversations, we see that in action. Like, everybody here basically has some of the same experiences or some of the same thoughts and emotions. And so maybe just remember that. For me, at least, it's been a wake-up call, maybe, to see that everybody is struggling with something. And I'm not, true. Yeah, and
you're not the only one.
I'm not weak by having a difficult time, because everybody is going to have it once in their life, or maybe several times. And so I just have to take care of myself and try to be there for my family and friends.
It makes you human, not weak.
Yeah, that's true.
Beautiful. Rachel, you can say some
Yeah,
words.
I just want to say that everything that you guys have said is very inspiring to me, because it's so different from what I have experienced, but at the same time, we have the same accept on how we can cope with it, and I really, really love that. And mental health is in everything we do, you know. Mental health is when you eat, mental health is when you sit here, mental health is in everything, and it's very important to know that the problem is always the solution. If you feel weird, start with it, you know. That's very important.
Yeah, amazing. So we're going to have to wrap it up with our panel, but we have half an hour with Q&A, where the audience can give us some questions, and we here sitting are going to have to answer them. So mostly, if you guys would ask of what we've been discussing, that's amazing. So Naomi, Nom will be going around with microphone.
Actually, you have a question, you can just speak loud. We have a microphone set up. Someone do we? No? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the microphone from
There?
Rachel and you just pass it around.
Yes.
It works.
So just raise your hands and then you guys can ask your questions. Yeah? Over here.
Hello. I want to say it was really powerful listening to all of you speak, and I'm very grateful to listen to all of you. I just had a question, because I think Anina mentioned earlier about women protecting the men and their maybe brother figures and etc. So I was wondering, what would you want men to do?
That's a good question, though.
Well, that's a good question.
Let me get ask the question.
Anina, you're gonna have to answer
Let
that.
me start seeing in the list. How much time do you have?
Is it a question to Anina or to?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank you for asking that question. I mean, first of all, the fact that you're even asking that question is so important. I mean, you're already doing something by being here and listening to us. That's the first thing that we need for you to listen to us. And actually, like, so you're already starting to do, like, this is like, because just like Rahima said, being asked, how are you? You know, how are you? And then secondly, next to listening to us and asking us questions, believing us. Believing us when we tell these things. Yeah, thank you. But I think those are the two start points that anyone can do. It's just really ask women, especially Black women, like how are you? How was this for you? How are you experiencing this? How are you experiencing this? Because often the things that we hear is, oh, I've literally heard this before. Oh, I don't experience that women experience oppression. I wonder why. But like really just ask people, like, how is this for you? Honestly, I want to hear how it is. And then believe them. And then maybe ask individually, what do you need from me? Like, what can I do? How can I be there for you? And sometimes it really is only just being there for someone and being this support tool, you know? Because often in situations like this, we see an overwhelming support from other women. But those are the people, that's just like preaching to the choir. They know already. So we need to be together in this. So yeah, I would say like start with these things that we can all do, you know? So thank you for that question.
Yeah. Anita also wants to answer on that.
I love you. I love you for asking that question. The reason why I was so eager to answer this question is because Black women, not just any type of woman, but Black women need emotional support in every way or form. Because the Black women have been neglected in so many ways.
Still are.
Like we spoke about before, the Black woman, you are you do a fundamenta, right? You are the ground of everything. We are supposed to support your family. You're supposed to support your children. You are supposed to be submissive to your husband. You're supposed to help around with everything. And in that process, you are so overwhelmed. And in that moment in time, you have no time to actually express yourself. And when it gets to that point when you actually express yourself, and then some people might view it, oh, here we go again, she's nagging. You know? And then that's the first failure, because then you're not really listening, because this woman have probably already told you from A to Z what the problem is, how you can fix it. You just have to listen and listen actively, and then, okay, I've heard you, and give her that emotional and physical support. That's what the Black women need, physical and emotional support.
Dora.
Can I just add some
More questions?
No,
Can I
Dora.
just add something to that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think also it's important that the men, to get also mental health care, because we women, I think we are good at seeking help, you know, because most men don't.
This is very true.
Thank you. Most men suffer internally; they don't seek help. We women, we have talked about it here now, and then I think maybe you go home, you'll dream about it. So I hope next time, Michael, you call them and talk about it, because I realize also men don't talk about their mental health like we do.
No.
And I know it's not that they don't have, we all have mental health issues, and I think it's time also that men talk about it and then get the help that they need, so that they'll be able to support us also in our journey. Yeah.
By taking care of yourselves, you guys take care of us too. Yeah.
Yeah, second question here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my question, okay, first of all, I would like to acknowledge that I actually understood the issue of society and culture that they have a bearing actually on the mental health of women, in particular black women. And in that regard, I've just coming from Africa, I'm just 6 months in Norway, and I can see that indeed there is a great difference in terms of how people deal with mental health issues from this side and from that other side. And in Africa, is someone, I'm forgetting who mentioned that, like people like they live in a more of like
Collective, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
here is more of an individualistic society. I noticed that because actually before in Africa, I never had like feeling like I'm depressed or something. But coming here, I really feel. Yeah, because you always have someone to talk to. You always society is always there for you. They are always supportive, and you can laugh at problems, and they can just feel like that. And so I want to ask a question like, what do you think can be best to address this issue on black women being like left out like in society, like it's an individualistic society on its own, and again you are a black woman. That means you have like two devils that you are fighting at one front. So it's
What was the question? Nathan, what was the question? Was it a question?
Yeah.
Rachel wants to answer.
Rachel
wants to answer.
Answer it.
Yeah.
Like you have what do you think we can be a solution to like how can we make remedies in terms of addressing this mental health problem on the aspect of a black person, black women, I mean, in Norway, in that they are fighting like two devils at one front. Like, how do you think they can be best helped to in terms of relieving their mental health pressures?
Rachel, do you want to answer?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I think, like, first of all, when like the system have a big role to kind of like address who kind of need help. And that starts with addressing where does that person come from? Where does this person come from? And then again, like we have already said here, who know us, who can address that we need help. Like it's not always easy, especially here in Norway, we are like a closed community, so it's very hard to like kind of express yourself like we can do in Africa. So surrounding yourself with people that know when you need help, that's the first step. And then again, like we are talking about here, like take care of yourself, feel your body, know how do you feel, what do you need help for, what kind of feeling odd, you know? And that's one of the things.
Yeah. I think also, is this working still? Okay, yeah. I also feel like the arenas for us to actually come with these issues need to be more visible. Because for me, I didn't know where to go, like who to talk to or how to find the people that could help me with my issues and finding my identity and like kind of like being comfortable with myself. So I think it's important that both new people in Norway of color and people that have been here long know where to find people that can help them with what they're struggling with or what they're wanting to talk about, so that it's visible. Yeah.
Check in on your sisters. You know what I mean? Check in on your family members. They need you, you know? They need to listen to you. Like, they need for you to be there for them, you know? On an emotional level, yeah.
Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah, thank you for an amazing event and opening your hearts, letting into your souls, sharing your problems, and letting us learn better about your lives. And we see so many people here, so it seems like many people are interested, and it's been very interesting. And for me, it seems like a kind of therapy as well. So I have this question for you. Do you experience this event tonight as a therapy? and if we're gonna be more events in the future.
Yeah, you can answer.
All right. I'll start.
I am next.
Yes. So me and Patience want to answer this. um, for me personally, this not only today when we're having the panel, but me and Patience working on this, meeting in the cafes, in restaurants, and talking about this matter has been actually therapy itself. It has been like for the past months. So let alone sitting here with so many black ladies who looks like me, who have the same experience as me, and people that I don't have to explain how I feel, you know, like when Anita talks, we were just like, yeah, yeah, right? And then Dora says something, Anina says something. It's like, yes, girl, that's exactly how I feel. That's how exactly I experience it. So, and us as humans being understood, and especially for black ladies who've been living and feeling like neglected and not understood. Like, you have to understand everyone around you, but you're so lucky if you find one person understanding you. This is more than therapy, or the therapy that actually works for me. And it's free, so.
Yeah. How much time do we have? 15 minutes. So.
Can
Okay,
I just add to that? Can I just say that I also felt like this was very therapeutic, because to me this is such a rare thing to see this. This is extremely rare for me to be surrounded by these beautiful black women and feeling like you said I just belong in a sense. It's just like and think about that, like we don't walk around feeling that. We don't walk, but once we're going to go out here, suddenly we're just like kind of like separated in a sense. But here, I feel a sense of belonging. I feel like everyone here will understand me as a woman, as a black person. And that's so invaluable. I mean, it's crazy. And I also want to add, because I don't think that I ever said this, because I really appreciate that you and Patience said this, but I also want to share that, because I was like, oh my God, this is a panel about mental health, and I didn't even say this, but I can say that I'm in therapy, just guys. And I want to say the reason why I want to share this is because it's so stigmatized. And I think that for any person in this audience, any person in this panel struggling with mental health, I struggle with mental health issues. And if you don't feel that I should be ashamed of it, then you shouldn't be ashamed of it either. It's completely normal and it's okay. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you like worse. It doesn't make you anything. It just makes you a human being. So I just wanted to add that as well. Yeah.
Before the next question, actually, I just want to say that this type of gatherings or settings, I usually find myself in these type of things, whether it's at Rahima's house where we're having tea, or just at Anita's house having wine and just talking all together. So my point here is that if you find this therapeutic, you can always, gather your friends and, your tribe of people and just gather them together and say, hey, let's just have a conversation on anything and just create this vibe and, safe space and just open up and dare to be vulnerable, So that was my take on it.
And if you don't have that, DM me. You can join.
Yeah, you can definitely join us.
Yeah.
This is not a staged thing. Like we can take this outside in my living room.
Yeah.
Never ask my roommate.
Yeah, I'm really inspired being here and blessed, being among such intelligent and extraordinary queens here. Now, I really feel like we're far away from home, and for most of us being from Africa or South America or Asia, I feel like we're far away from home. And for me, I was religious, but I'm not religious anymore. So the black woman is my God. And I feel like... I'm saying such because I feel like they're the gateway.
Suddenly I became religious too.
Yeah, I feel like they're the gateway to life because of my liking. I see myself in a black woman. My mom is black. My father is black. My aunties are sisters. I grew up in a very big family with my aunties taking care of me. So, but my problem is here. We are far away from home. So how are we going to deal with the young ones coming, especially the young girls coming up? How are we going to do our best as a man? What can I do to help? And because I have a little sister and even a little brother too that I think also struggles here, racism, all that. So what can we do, all of us, like black, even we're trying to integrate, like to live here, because most of the people came here because their struggles. Maybe there was a war, there was something happening, that's why we're all here. Because if you see us, we're different. So what can we do as a group, as a Pan-African from Africa, Asia, as long as you have a melanin in you, that you see yourself, that you see me as a brother or a sister, or, yeah, what can we all do to be better?
Yeah. Anita?
This is not only for the black people, because there are a lot of white people in the audience, and half of my family is white. And this is important to make a visibility of mental health amongst black women. That's the first thing. And I feel like we have emphasized on the fact that we have shared experience, but to interpret that to our white parties can sometimes be hard, because we feel like we are not met halfway. They won't be able to understand us, and that takes a lot of education for us to educate them on, okay, what is this, how I'm feeling this, and why am I feeling this way? And they are not going to be able to relate to that because they haven't experienced it. But one of the things we can do is actually educate them, even though it is one of the hardest things to do, to educate someone else. But I feel like people won't be aware of these issues amongst us and why we feel so different if we don't give them the information and the education that they need of why we are feeling this way, why we are feeling excluded, why we are feeling these emotions. Because if they don't know, then the circle continues. We will be offended. We will be hurt. At the end of the day, it's hurting us again. So, yes, it's not our responsibility to educate these people, but then again, it is our responsibility to make them aware of why we are feeling the way we are feeling and why we are feeling excluded from the society and why this is having an impact on our mental health. So we should definitely include our white
allies.
Our white allies, because we need them. We need them in order for there to be a change. I think that's a start.
Yeah.
As a parent, I would say it's also important for us, like, okay, for me, I identify myself 100% South Sudanese, though I've lived in Norway so long. But my children who are born in Bergen, they will identify themselves more like Norwegian than South Sudanese. Though I have taught them my culture and stuff, and their father's from Sierra Leone, that's even complex now, but they will feel they're Norwegian. So our collective duty or responsibility is to make them feel that they belong. If they say they belong to Norway, they should have the right to feel they're Norwegians or South Sudanese or Sierra Leoneans. And the thing here is also that the school plays a very important role in talking about these issues, identity, because it's an identity crisis also of like, I don't know where I belong. Me, I know where I belong, I think. But like with kids who are born here, it's like I belong here, and sometimes I feel I don't belong here because my friend has told me that I don't belong here, so it becomes a complexity problem for the children. But if we I take these uncomfortable conversations with my children because it's necessary. And I think we need to do that. We need to talk about it. And if they feel like they're Norwegians, I'm like, okay, that's fine. If they feel they're South Sudanese, that's okay. If they feel they're Sierra Leone, that's okay. But again, the question is who defines who they are or where they belong to. And these are the conversations that we as grown-up have to take. And we also have to let the school talk about it openly. And also, we also have to address it in the way we talk about it everywhere.
Yeah. Can I just add to that also? I feel like from the other side, from the people that are curious and the people that we have to educate, just come in with an open mind. Stop with the assumptions. Because looking at a person, you don't know where they're from. You can have your assumptions. Everybody, it's natural to have assumptions about people. But try and push them away and see this is a person. I don't know if they are from an African country or if they were born here or what their passport says or what they are identifying as. I don't know anything about this person. So when you are seeking to be educated, don't come in with kind of like thinking that you know anything about it. Come in with an open mind and with just a blank canvas and try and retrieve as much information and actually listen to what the person is telling you, because it might be something really different than what you first thought it would be. Like, oh, you're adopted, or oh, you're from there, or oh, you're African. No, you're not African, or yeah. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And also talk to your kids.
Move on to the next.
Yeah. Okay.
Next question.
Yeah. So I think it was amazing as well to be here and just listen. And I was a bit lost what to ask. I was just, really happy to be here today. And I was thinking some of the similarities of Brazilian culture because I come from Brazil. And of course, as everyone was saying, one person cannot talk about how the whole country is. Each person, each family will have their own culture, their own background, their own experiences that would shift in many different ways. But actually, a black woman is an activist in Brazil. She talks about many things you mentioned here today, and it's quite similar. So I think it's just repeating what you already said. And she talks about how in Brazil, they believe there is racism, but many people don't consider themselves racists. And it's really funny to see the statistics, they're quite similar, but the people that say the racism exists, they don't consider themselves as such. And she talks about the structure itself that is racist, and every person has to re-educate yourself to not be there. And I didn't have many experiences here, and I can't talk about myself much, but then I noticed that some people would ignore that racism exists in Norway. And then different than in Brazil, that people realize that exists, and they claim not to be themselves I just wanted to know, and especially as black women, which will have another level like you talked about, how does that feel also in Norway? Because I haven't had much that talk, and I think it would be really nice to hear about that as well. Yeah, and how that's hidden or not, and how people play that role of pretending that racism is not there, and how that affects also the mental health in the end point.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah. We have 5 minutes.
I have some of, it was hard to grow up here, it was a lot of racism. I came first up in the north, in Vadsø. And then there was a lady, was asking me, I had my afro, and then she said, I remember when I was younger, I wanted to have a nigger doll. How am I supposed to react on that? Is that racism? Is it? I felt very bad. I was like, wow. I didn't know how to react because I wanted to be kind and kind of respond in a kind of good way, I didn't want to get angry, But I told this lady to just educate herself in what she's really saying, She can say that if she really feels good about it, but I don't want her to say it to me. Or other people that doesn't want to use that word. That was just an example.
Yeah, and black women are also very much, men too, but women are sexualized. they're sexualized and fetishized and exotified. And that's really something that we experience I have Black female friends who are, asked how much they want. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that the Black woman specifically will experience, and even within that, there is colorism. So someone who is from that part of that they will experience something, but not the other person. So, there's so many layers to it. And having comments, like you said, such ignorant comments, but then specifically to me as a Black, brown woman that, I've never kissed a Negro before, stuff like that. Or Black women are so much better in bed, yeah, you hear things that are very shocking, you know what I mean? And that's hence, ask us what we experience, because you will not hear the same things said from that person's mouth that they will feel comfortable saying to Rachel, to me, to anyone on this panel. You don't know until you're told.
Yeah, and another thing, since you asked about the hidden racism too, is sometimes it's just so hidden that people will be asking you a question, like talking about yourself, right? Where are you from? No. What have you done? No. And then when you tell them of your achievements, for example, they will be like, what? As if it's not expected from a Black person, a Black lady, specifically, right? So these are like one of the examples that I can mention that I've experienced myself, that is hidden racism. They're not saying it that you're less, but their expression is saying much more than what they ever could have said with words, actually. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. So, as I said, I'm Arabic, and I have heard a lot of stuff for being a Black woman, for being Arabic, for being Muslim, for being whatever you want. I've heard it all. So, and I've learned, in a couple of months, I have noticed people with two kind of people asking questions. One of them will ask you, and they are looking for an answer. They want to learn. They want to know the truth. And you have others that asked me question, and when I answered, they were like, yeah, but I know a friend that didn't actually, that didn't happen to my friend. Yeah, they want to argue. They don't want to hear the answer. And I have many people in my life, my work and friends, they're like, in my face, they say something, but immediately when I just turn around, I notice and I feel it, and I know that they have changed what they just say to me. So many things in your face, something in your back is something else.
I think we can take one last question, and that's it. Yeah.
Is it on? Hello?
Perfect.
Okay. I was told to be quick, so I'll try. I already talk fast, but I'll be even faster, okay? So you guys were talking about helping each other, listening, all that, and I totally agree. While you guys were talking, I just thought about a situation where me and my friend were out hiking, trying to be productive and all that. It was Friday. Come back home, like, okay, we've done something productive today. We can drink ourselves senseless tonight, right? So we start cooking, everything, drinking wine. Then one of her roommates come down, and she just basically just opens up about one of her past traumas. And it was about rape and stuff like that. It was really bad. And both me and my friend, we just froze, basically. So we're standing there like, yeah, we didn't know. You were not prepared for this, So what I want to ask is, how are we going to help somebody who comes to you and was like, okay, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, especially when you're like caught in the moment, what are the tools to use in that moment to help somebody that's going through something?
I just want to share something that me and some of my friends have incorporated into our habit when we're talking about these topics. So instead of just kind of exploding on somebody, because you don't know what kind of day they're having, you don't know if they're emotionally present and mentally present enough to take your load. So we ask each other, how do you say this in English though? You say, ja, vad var det på norska då? Ja, har du rum? Do you have space? Do you have space before you unleash the beast on somebody? Because that can feel really overwhelming when you're expecting to have a good time and you're in that scenario and then somebody just comes with some really heavy stuff on you. And that's in any case, really. Just ask someone, are you okay to take this on? So that's something that we have incorporated and that has worked so much better, because then you're allowed to actually say, no, you know what, today I'm just so mentally blocked, I don't feel like I'm able to help you. Yeah.
Listen, this is very hard for me to say, but I'm a survivor. And today was a very, very difficult day for me. Every 8th of March is a very difficult day for me because it's the anniversary of one of the assaults that I experienced. And coming here, when I didn't feel really good, this really helped me, just being here. And that says a lot. Like, I didn't feel good, and now I feel better just by being here. You know what I mean? It's the same day. I'm the same person. But being here, feeling the love, the understanding, the empathy and the compassion and people listening, even though we weren't talking about that, helped me. So I know I have so much compassion for a friend, and also I know that in this room there are so many other survivors, because it's such a common problem, as we all know. And sometimes all that someone needs is just compassion and just you listening. I know that it can be super, super overwhelming and shocking. And like you said, it's just like, whoa, because it's such a huge thing. But understand one thing, you don't have to fix it. This is very important. You don't have to fix it. Just be there.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a wrap. The last part got me quite emotional, all of my feelings. However, it's a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. By showing up here today, by being a part of this, you guys are actually building the community as much as we're trying to do. So this is not a job that only us are doing, but it's together. If you guys wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be having this panel this way. So thank you for showing up today. You guys can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, ASUUIB, African Students Union in Bergen, and Meeting of the Minds also, so that you guys can be updated on what we're doing and our upcoming events. So
thank you to our wonderful...
thank you for our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you for making time for this. We love you.